Hey guys, welcome to the channel, and in this video we're going to be covering Yelan to give you guys an updated guide on our best artifacts, weapons, teams, and more. This guide will help you unleash Yelan's full potential, and without further ado, let's get started. We'll begin by taking a look at her kit to understand her playstyle and game plan. Her basic attacks are pretty standard, just doing 4 consecutive attacks with the bow, and her charge attack being a standard bow charge attack. However, with her breakthrough state, which you get after being 5 seconds out of combat, her next charge attack will have an 80% decreased charge time, and once fully charged fires off a breakthrough barb that deals AoE hydro damage, scaling off Yelan's max HP. This is pretty useful to finish off weak mobs in the overworld, but in harder content, you generally wouldn't use this as it's a DPS loss when factoring in the time it takes to attack. Her skill allows her to move quickly and marks enemies she passes through, and when it ends, the marks explode, dealing hydro damage to all marked enemies. When tapping the skill, Yelan only travels a short distance, while holding the skill allows her to stay in the state for up to 3 seconds. Aside from combat, this is also a really useful ability in the overworld as it allows you to traverse long distances really quickly. Her burst deals AoE hydro damage and creates an exquisite throw to aid her in her battle, which is this little dice thing that appears next to her. The exquisite throw follows the character around and does coordinated attacks once every second when the active character does normal attacks. It can also trigger the coordinated attack each time Yelan's skill explodes and hits opponents. This lasts for 15 seconds. Her burst is really similar to Xingqiu's burst, but it does much more damage. For Yelan's passive skills, the first one increases her max HP by 6, 12, 18, or 30%, depending on if the team has 1, 2, 3, or 4 elemental types. For her second passive skill, so long as Exquisite Throw, her elemental burst, is in play, your active character deals 1% more damage. This increases by a further 3.5% damage every second. The maximum increase to damage dealt is 50%. The pre-existing effect will be dispelled if her elemental burst is recast during its duration. And her third passive skill grants her 25% more rewards from 20-hour expeditions in leeway. For talent priority, her burst should be her top priority, followed by her skill, and lastly her normal attacks. You can leave your normal attacks at level 1 unless you want to use your Yelan as an on-field DPS, in which you can level it up. And here are her constellations if you're planning to go for them. For her C1, Lingering Lifeline gains 1 additional charge. This is a pretty nice constellation as it allows Yelan to get away with slightly less energy regen and is very handy for exploration as well. Her C2, when Exquisite Throw conducts a coordinated attack, it will fire an additional water arrow that will deal 14% of Yelan's max HP as hydro damage. This effect can trigger once every 1.8 seconds. This increases her burst damage, which is pretty nice. Her C3 just increases the level of her elemental burst by 3. Her C4 increases all party members' max HP by 10% for 25 seconds for every opponent marked by Lifeline. A maximum increase of 40% max HP can be attained in this manner. Her C5 increases the level of Lingering Lifeline, her elemental skill, by 3. And lastly, her C6. After using Depth Clary on dice, Yelan will enter the Mastermind state. In this state, all of Yelan's normal attacks will be special breakthrough barbs. These breakthrough barbs will have similar abilities to normal ones, and the damage dealt will be considered charged attack damage, dealing 156% of normal breakthrough barbs damage. Mastermind state lasts 20 seconds and will be cleared after Yelan fires 5 arrows. This is a huge increase to her burst damage and is definitely one of the strongest C6s in the game. Now moving on to Yelan's weapon, her signature Aqua Simulacra is going to be her best in slot, as it gives a huge crit damage stat as well as more HP and damage from its effect, which is great for Yelan. Other 5-star options include any 5-star bows with crit substats which can be used as great stat sticks, such as the Hunter's Path, Polar Star, Skyward Harp, and Thundering Pulse. These are all great options to use if you have any of them. You can also use the Slingshot, and even though it's a 3-star, it can be a really great option for Yelan as crit stats are very strong and Yelan doesn't really care about its low attack as lots of damage scales off her HP. Other bows that give Yelan more damage can also be nice, such as the Stringless with its Elemental Mastery substat and skill and burst damage buffs. The Moon's Moon can also be decent as it has an attack substat and the effect gives a huge boost to her elemental burst. You can also run bows with energy regen substats like Elegy of the End, Favonius Warbow, Sacrificial Bow, and Fading Twilight. These are great options to help maintain her burst uptime requirements, allowing her to go for more damage in her artifacts. Speaking of artifacts, the artifact you want is the 4-piece Emblem of Severed Fate. The 2-piece gives 20% energy regen, and the 4-piece gives a burst damage buff of 25% of the wearer's total energy regen for a maximum of 75%. This is the best artifact set for Yelan, but if you don't have a full set ready, you can mix and match any of these 2 pieces in the meanwhile. 2-piece Emblem of Severed Fate, 2-piece Tenacity of the Millilith, which gives 20% HP, 2-piece Heart of Depth, which gives 15% hydro damage bonus, and 2-piece Noblesse Oblige, which gives a 20% burst damage increase. These aren't as good as 4-piece Emblem, but it's usable until you can farm a good emblem set. For her artifact main stats, you want her sans to be HP percent or energy recharge depending on what you need. You want to try to aim for around 230% ER at least for C0, and you can go a little less if you have C1. And if you're planning to run her in a double hydro team, you could probably get away with around 180%. You want a hydro damage goblet and a crit rate or crit damage circlet depending on what you need. For substat priority, you want energy regen again until you reach the threshold needed, followed by HP percent, then crit rate and crit damage. Now, for her teams, Yelan can fit into most teams that require a Hydra applicator, as she can get the job done while also providing lots of damage at the same time. The first teams we have are Hyper Bloom teams, which are great as they don't require much investment. You can pair Yelan with a Dendro, the best ones being Nahida or Alhaitham, but Kale, Dendro MC, and even Baiju can work here. Followed by an Electro character to proc all the cores, with the best probably being Kuki, but you can use Beidou, Fischl, or most Electro units here as well. For the final slot, you can fill it with another Hydro, Dendro, or Electro depending on what you need. Or you can put in a Nemo unit like Kazuha or Sucrose if you want for more grouping, or use a shielder like Zhongli to make it more comfy. This is a great core team to get lots of damage out of your teams with minimal investment, as mostly your Electro characters are needed to stack Elemental Mastery for the bulk of the damage. You can also run a bountiful core team with Yelan and Nilou. The third slot can either be Nahida or Alhaitham, and the fourth slot, if you're using Nahida, you can use Kokomi, and if you're using Alhaitham, you can use Baiju. This team excels at AoE damage and is great for killing many mobs at the same time, but can be lacking damage in single target bosses. For Burgeon teams, you can set Yelan up with a Pyro character like Toma probably being the best option, alongside a Dendro character, which you can actually use the new 5-star character Emily, who loves Burgeon teams. But if you don't have her, you can just use any Dendro unit such as Nahida, Alhaitham, Baiju, Kale, or Dendro MC. And for the last slot, it's pretty flexible so you can fit in any character based on what your team needs. And for classic Vaporized teams, you can pair Yelan with a strong Pyro DPS like Hu Tao, Arlecchino, Klee, and others. And with those two being your core, you can fill out the rest of your team with who you want. Some options can include Farina, Xingqiu, Zhongli, Jean, Bennett, Jian Yun, Kazuha, and Sucrose. For some teams, you can even replace Xingqiu with Yelan. For example, in the Yelan national team, you can use Yelan in place of Xingqiu with Raiden, Zhangling, and Bennett. This is great if you're already using Xingqiu in another team, as they fill similar roles. And for the last section, we have Yelan Electrocharge teams, where you pair Yelan with an Electro character like Raiden, Fischl, Beidou, Yeimiko, and others. With that core, you can fill out the other slots with who you want to fit the team, like Kazuha or Sucrose for more grouping, Zhongli for shields, or more Hydro and Electro application. It's up to you. And that's it. Yelan is a really strong character and is definitely worth getting if you haven't already. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, consider liking the video and subscribing. It really helps. If you have any questions or anything to add, leave it in the comments below. I'll try to answer as many as I can. That's it for me, and I'll see you guys next time.